The battlefield smelled of death. Blood soaked the earth, and the cries of the wounded faded into silence. I wiped my sword clean, watching the enemy soldiers fall to their knees, their faces pale with fear as their king's banner burned in the distance. "General Liang," a soldier approached me panting. "The enemy has offered terms of peace. They wish to negotiate." I sheathed my sword, chest heaving with exhaustion. "Take me to their envoy." The soldiers dragged a figure forward, forcing him to kneel. A man with long silver hair, streaked with dirt and dried blood, lifted his face to meet my gaze. "I am Yan Rui, Crown Prince of Xi'an," he said, voice steady but laced with bitterness. His wrists were bound so tightly that the skin beneath the chains had turned raw. One of his generals kneeling behind him growled through clenched teeth. "Forgive me, your highness. We beg the king to choose another—" "Silence," Yan Rui snapped. Though his voice wavered, he turned back to me, swallowing hard. "Take me as your prisoner. Let my people live." His body shook, but his eyes burned with defiance. I studied him. "Is this what you want?" Yan Rui's jaw clenched. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he cast a fleeting glance at the collapsed throne, at the blood-soaked robes of the royal advisors who had been slain in the final assault. "It was my king's order." His voice cracked. "I am his final offering." My fingers curled around the hilt of my sword, something bitter rising in my throat. "The Emperor will decide your fate," I said, forcing my voice to remain steady. I turned to leave, but his voice, softer this time, stopped me. "What's your name?" I hesitated, glancing over my shoulder. "Liang Feng." "I'll remember it," he whispered, and for a reason I couldn't explain, my chest ached. The journey back to the capital stretched longer than it should have. Yan Rui was transported not as a guest, but as a prisoner, locked inside a gilded cage mounted on a carriage, its bars cold and unyielding. He sat perfectly still, shoulders stiff, as if the weight of his ruined kingdom rested on his back. His once pristine royal robes were torn, and the dried blood from battle still clung to his skin. Yet he refused to bow his head. The soldiers whispered about him as they marched alongside the carriage. "A prince in a cage? Fitting, isn't it? I heard he volunteered to be taken. Pathetic." Their words were like thorns in my chest. I should have stopped them, but I didn't. But every night, as we made camp, I lingered near the carriage, watching him under the dim glow of lantern light. He didn't sleep. He just sat there, hands resting on his knees, staring into the darkness. One night I brought a bowl of rice and crouched by the bars. "Eat." He turned his face away. "I'm not hungry." "You haven't eaten in 2 days. You'll die before we reach the capital." He let out a sharp laugh, bitter and broken. "Maybe that would be best." Something inside me twisted painfully. I slid the bowl through the bars and stood up, my fingers curling into fists. "Don't die," I muttered. "It would make everything pointless." I walked away before he could answer. When we reached the capital, the city streets buzzed with life, but the people quieted as we passed. Eyes full of curiosity and malice lingered on the gilded cage as whispers followed us like shadows. "Is that the enemy prince? He looks fragile." I heard he begged for his life. I clenched my jaw, my fingers itching to silence the crowd, but I forced myself to stay composed. Yan Rui never looked their way. His back remained straight, his chin lifted, wearing his brokenness like armor. The palace gates loomed tall and unforgiving, guards swinging them open as we approached. I ordered the soldiers to lift the cage down, and Yan Rui stepped out, his wrists still bound. The iron left bruises on his pale skin, the marks of surrender carved into his flesh. "Follow me," I said. He didn't respond, only walked behind me like a ghost, his chains dragging across the marble floors. The throne room was as grand as I remembered. Pillars of gold stretching toward a domed ceiling, painted with scenes of past victories. And at the heart of it all, upon an elevated throne, sat Emperor Zhao Heng. He wore robes of gold and black. His dark eyes gleamed when they landed on me, and the corner of his mouth lifted in an almost tender smile. "Feng," he said, voice like silk. "You've returned." I dropped to one knee. "I bring victory, Your Majesty, and the Crown Prince of Xi'an." Yan Rui was silent, his chest rising and falling with each shallow breath. Zhao Heng descended the steps of his throne, the click of his boots echoing in the vast chamber. He circled Yan Rui like a predator, one hand lifting to brush the prince's blood-matted hair from his face. "He's beautiful," Zhao Heng mused, his fingers lingering against Yanrui's cheek longer than necessary. It would be a waste to kill him. Yanrui flinched, but didn't recoil. He just stood there, enduring it. "Take care of him, Feng," Zhao Heng ordered, turning back to his throne with a dismissive wave. "I trust you." My chest tightened as I bowed. "Yes, Your Majesty." I didn't know it then, but that single command would destroy me. The season shifted, and Yanrui remained within the walls of my residence, a gilded prison disguised as mercy. The Emperor's command had sealed our fates together, binding us with invisible chains neither of us could break. At first, he spoke little, eating only when necessary, existing rather than living. But he was proud, never pleading, never weeping. His silence was a rebellion in itself. Then, slowly, cracks formed in his armor. It started with a glance, brief, hesitant. Then a question, sharp-edged, testing. And then, one night after too much wine, a confession, soft as a dying ember. "I don't hate you as much as I should." I laughed, though it was bitter. Then I must not be doing my job right. He turned away, but not before I caught the flicker of something unreadable in his expression. The night air was thick with the scent of damp earth and candle wax, shadows flickering against the wooden walls of the training hall. Yanrui insisted on pushing himself too hard, his body still bearing the scars of war and captivity. He moved with precision, but exhaustion dulled his strikes. Then it happened. Too fast for him to stop. His stance faltered. His sword slipped from his grasp, and in the next instant he collapsed. "Yanrui!" I caught him before he hit the ground, his body trembling against mine. His breath came ragged, hot against my throat. When I looked down, crimson streaked his lips. "You're still wounded," I murmured, lowering him gently. "You should have told me." He let out a weak chuckle, his voice laced with mockery. "Why do you care?" I wiped the blood from his mouth with my sleeve, ignoring the way my chest tightened. "Because you're not my enemy anymore." He went still. The silence stretched between us, heavy and unspoken. Then he looked up at me, truly looked at me, and for the first time I saw something raw beneath his defiance. Fear, not of me, not of death, but of what came after survival. His fingers curled weakly against my sleeve, and for reasons I couldn't explain, I covered his hand with mine. "Rest," I said, softer this time. "I'll stay." He didn't protest, and that, more than anything, told me how much he'd already begun to trust me, even if he wished he didn't. Zhu Heng had always been a man of exquisite taste. He surrounded himself with the finest silks, the most delicate porcelain, the rarest gems. His court was a collection of beauty, hand-picked and placed where he desired. And now, his gaze had settled on Yanrui. I felt it long before he spoke. The way his eyes followed us in the training yard, the way his fingers lingered on the rim of his cup when he watched us spar. He never spoke of it outright, not at first. But his silence was sharper than a blade. The palace corridors flickered with lantern light. A feast had been prepared in honor of our recent victories. Yanrui had been summoned, draped in silks that did little to mask the tension in his shoulders. He moved through the grand hall like a ghost among the living, his presence both captivating and damning. I kept my distance, but Zhao Heng did not. "You seem fond of him," the Emperor mused as he swirled his wine, his voice a lazy drawl. I remained kneeling, head lowered. "I only follow your orders, Your Majesty." Zhao Heng chuckled, setting his cup down with a quiet clink. "Do you?" A hand brushed against my chin, light as a whisper. I didn't flinch, though every muscle in my body locked in place. "You never hesitated before, Feng," he murmured, voice dipping into something softer, something dangerous. "Why now?" I had no answer. The truth was a dagger lodged in my throat. Yanrui sat across the room, silent but watching. His eyes, always defiant, flickered with something unreadable. He wasn't naive. He had ruled a kingdom once, knew the games of power and possession all too well. He knew exactly what was happening. Zhao Heng smiled, leaning back against his throne. The gold embroidery of his robes shimmered in the candlelight, a reminder of the chains that bound us all. "Be careful, Feng," he murmured, lifting his cup once more. "I don't like sharing what's mine." The words settled between us, heavy with unspoken threats. I lowered my head further. "I understand, Your Majesty. But I did not. Not yet. Because I had already fallen too far. Loyalty was a fickle thing. I had spent years wielding it like a blade, swearing my life to the Emperor, carving out victories in his name. I had thought myself unshakable, until the night I held a child in my arms and chose kindness. The orders were simple. Eliminate a noble family accused of treason. No survivors. I had carried out such orders before. Names, faces, ages, none of it had ever mattered. I was the Emperor's sword, and a sword did not hesitate. But then, in the wreckage of a burning courtyard beneath the bodies of the fallen, I heard it. A cry. I stepped over the lifeless form of a woman, her arms outstretched as if she had died shielding something, and there, half buried beneath silk and ash, was a child. A girl, no older than a few years, her tiny hands curling into fists, her dark eyes wet with tears. She reached for me. Small fingers wrapped around mine, clinging with a desperation that shattered something deep inside me. I could not kill her. I would not kill her. "Take her!" I ordered, voice low, urgent. I thrust the child into the arms of one of my most trusted men. "Get her out of the capital! Tell no one!" The soldier hesitated. "General—" "Go!" I snapped. "Now!" He obeyed. I watched as he disappeared into the night, the child's cries fading into the distance. I had made my choice. The summons came before dawn. I knelt before the throne, my head bowed in practiced submission, but my pulse thundered beneath my skin. Zhao Heng sat above me, his expression unreadable, fingers tapping idly against the armrest of his seat. "Why did you disobey me?" His voice was soft, too soft. I did not look up. "I accept any punishment, Your Majesty." Silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. Then, a slow exhale, a chuckle, low and edged with something sharp. "Good," Zhao Heng murmured. And then the world tilted. The moment I felt the dizziness creeping in, I knew. The tea. Too late. I collapsed, the marble floor rushing up to meet me. My limbs refused to move, the strength draining from my body like sand through my fingers. Above me, Zhao Heng loomed, his silhouette hazy. "You never hesitate on the battlefield," he mused, crouching beside me. His fingers brushed my hair back in a mockery of affection. "And yet, for one useless little girl you faltered." I tried to speak, but I couldn't. Zhao Heng leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "I should have killed you," he whispered, "but death is too kind." The darkness swallowed me whole. When I woke, the world felt distant. The silk sheets beneath me were too soft, the air too fragrant with incense, masking something rotten beneath. I tried to move. Chains clinked. My wrists were bound with heavy iron. "You're awake." Zhao Heng's voice was calm, almost tender. He sat beside the bed dressed in white, the very image of serenity. A porcelain cup rested in his hand, steam rising in delicate curls. I swallowed, my throat dry. "Your Majesty." His fingers brushed against my hair, tucking a loose strand behind my ear. "You might be thinking why you are not dead yet, right?" I didn't respond. He set the cup aside, tilting my chin up with 2 fingers. "And yet, here you are." I held his gaze, silent. I would not beg. A soft chuckle. "You truly are loyal, aren't you?" His fingers trailed lower, down my neck, tracing the scars left by war, by duty, by him. Loyalty. The word felt like a noose tightening around my throat. Zhao Heng sighed, shaking his head as if I had disappointed him. "I could have had you executed for treason. I should have. But death is mercy. And you—" He leaned in, his breath warm against my skin. "Do not deserve mercy." I closed my eyes. He pressed closer, his lips ghosting over my collarbone. A slow, deliberate claim. I did not move. I did not fight. There was no war to win here, no blade to wield, only death to seek. Zhao Heng exhaled against my skin, his grip tightening. "Do you hate me for this, Feng?" The words scraped against my throat as I whispered, "No, Your Majesty." A lie. One he saw through yet did not challenge. His fingers trailed lower. His touch was gentle but humiliating. A deception worse than cruelty. "You were mine, Feng." His voice was soft. "You are mine." Here I was nothing, just a thing he refused to let die. And when it was over, when his warmth finally pulled away, I lay still. "Sleep well, Feng," Zhao Heng murmured, pressing a kiss to my temple like a lover, like something sacred. But there was no sanctity in this. As the doors shut behind him, I stared at the ceiling, hollow. For months I became his prisoner, my body no longer my own. Every time I tried to take my life, he reminded me, "Yan Rui lives because of you." I lost count of the days. My soul eroded, but I held on. For Yan Rui. When news came that Yan Rui was being sent back to Xi'an, I knew the truth. Zhao Heng was never so merciful. He was sending Yan Rui to die. I moved without hesitation, escaped my prison to save him. By the time I reached the convoy, the attack had already begun. Shadows flickered between the trees, assassins moving with the precision of men who had done this 1,000 times before. The guards fell swiftly, steel meeting flesh, bodies crumpling into the dirt. Yan Rui stood among the chaos, a blade in his bound hands, defiance burning in his eyes. Blood streaked his temple, his breath coming in ragged gasps, but he still fought. Even now he refused to bow. I never thought twice. I moved. Steel sang as I tore through the assassins, my blade carving through them like fate had written this battle just for me. My body remembered the rhythm of war, each strike a whisper of vengeance, of desperation, of purpose. Then, pain. A blade buried itself in my side, another tore across my back. I staggered, but I did not fall. Not until I heard his voice. "Feng!" But it wasn't Yan Rui's voice that called me. It was his. Zhao Heng stood at the edge of the battlefield, his expression unreadable, until he saw me fall. Then everything shattered. "Stop," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos like thunder. "Stop at once." The assassins froze. The battle ended in an instant. But I was already sinking to my knees, the warmth of my blood soaking into the dirt. And then, his arms were around me. Zhao Heng dropped to the ground, pulling me against him, his hands pressing against my wounds. His robes darkened with my blood, the pristine image of the Emperor ruined in seconds. "Hold on," he whispered. It was not a command, not an order, just a plea. My breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. I looked up at him, my vision hazy, but I could still see the fear in his eyes. "I should have never let you go," he murmured, voice raw. "I should have never hurt you. Feng, stay with me." A weak smile ghosted my lips. "Your Majesty." My voice was barely above a whisper, but I knew he heard me. "Please, don't kill him." Zhao Heng stiffened. His gaze flickered to Yan Rui, still kneeling a few feet away, bound and breathless. "Please," I repeated. "Spare him, let him go home." For a long moment the Emperor said nothing. Then, his fingers trembled against my cheek, his grip tightening. "You should be asking for your life, not his," he whispered. I exhaled, feeling my strength slip away like water through my fingers. I was so tired. My voice cracked, my body growing heavier in his arms. Tired of all of it. The wars, the humiliation, the chains. Zhao Heng's entire body tensed, his hand curled into the fabric of my blood-stained robes, as if he could keep me here through sheer force of will. "You are mine," he whispered, his voice shaking. "You have always been mine." I closed my eyes, my lips forming the faintest smile. "I know," I breathed, "and no matter what, I have never betrayed you." Zhao Heng sucked in a sharp breath, his grip tightening, his face twisting with something I had never seen before. Desperation. "Feng, don't—" I let out a soft sigh, feeling my body grow weightless. "May glory and victory forever belong to you, Your Majesty." The end. The world moved on without him. Zhao Heng did as he asked. Yan Rui was returned safely to Xi'an. His life spared, but his soul was shattered from the very person who sacrificed himself to keep him safe. And Zhao Heng, he lived. But he did not move on. He ruled his empire with an iron hand, his enemies falling before him, his name carved into history. But no matter how much power he seized, no matter how many victories he claimed, nothing filled the hollow space Feng left behind. Some nights, when the palace was silent, he would sit in the war chambers alone, staring at the chair where Feng used to stand beside him. Other nights, He returned to the chamber where Feng once lay, where silk sheets were still stained with the echoes of what he had done. Regret was a crueler punishment than death, and for Zhao Heng it lasted a lifetime.